Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to a nice, quiet fireside chat. This is the Geeks on Screen special. Hell no, we ain't doing it like that. Boo! Welcome aboard, everybody. It is straight mofo crazy up in here tonight. This is the Geeks with Wives Radio Ant-Man spoiler cast. And I tell you, we have the frickin' Geeks on Screen all-star team here tonight. I am honored and humbled. So, first of all, on screen, we have the real journalist, Mr. John Reyes. How you doing, John?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
We have cosplayer extraordinaire, Stephen Herron.
Hey, guys. How is everybody doing?
Coming up and pinch hitting out of nowhere, like the Flash. We have the great and honorable entertainment editor for Geeks on Wise, Mr. Everett Harn. Ev, call him out.
Boom. Second in command on this podcast.
All right, playing his fingers on the boards and being the technical director tonight, we have comic book editor, Mr. Brad Bell.
All right. Ant-Man, y'all. Let's go.
That's what we're at. Wasn't Michael McConaughey supposed to be Ant-Man at one point?
Michael McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey, and that was just in my fantasy, I guess.
That would be great.
Sorry, I'm getting him mixed up with Michael Douglas. And we have comic book expert on all things occult and archaeologistic, like Mr. Danny B.
What's up, guys?
All right, guys. So, needless to say, we're all pretty pumped up for this movie. I think after seeing it, or at least a bunch of us are. I won't speak for anyone. So, first of all, I want to get Mr. Jonathan Reyes to run down the box office take from this weekend for Ant-Man, and he's also going to compare some of those numbers to some other big Marvel properties that we felt were similar to the Ant-Man content. So,
on top of names tonight.
All right, run them numbers, Mr. Reyes.
All right, so we'll start with Ant-Man. This is per IGN.com. 58 million for the weekend, for its opening weekend. A couple of things I saw along the way that is worth noting for it is that this marks the lowest domestic debut since The Incredible Hulk, and it falls a few million shy of the first Avenger, the first Captain America, which was a 65 million opening.
Wow. So which one was it? Because there was Incredible Hulk and Hulk, right?
All I see here is Incredible Hulk. It's the lowest domestic debut since the Incredible Hulk. So.
Does anybody know? Was that the Eric Bana one?
Oh, that was the.
That was the.
Ed Norton one? Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So that's Ant-Man. Guardians. Since it came out of my mouth first. Guardians of the Galaxy. Stephen wanted to compare it to this one. 94.3. This is per Hollywood Reporter. Then we had Thor. Thor is 65 million plus. That's per Box Office Mojo. And then this is the big blockbuster Age of Ultron this past year. 191.3. That's per Deadline.com. So those are the ones we're comparing it to. So I guess thoughts on those numbers?
I read an article earlier, I think it may have been Entertainment Weekly, and they were talking about how, compared to previous Marvel movies, not team movies, but the solo films, that this was one of the lowest, if not the lowest budget. So even though it didn't do gangbusters at the box office, it was still relatively a financial success. And it opened number one, just like all 12 of these, I think it's 12 or so, MCU movies have.
Oh, did it beat out the Amy Schumer movie this weekend?
It did.
Yeah.
Trainwreck was 3.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I wanted to compare it to Guardians for the sake of it's a movie that came out and nobody really, other than diehard comic book fans, knew who the Guardians were. And I feel like Ant-Man was very much like that for a lot of people. They hear Ant-Man and they don't really know who that is or that was a real superhero. And so to compare those numbers, it's interesting to see.
I think with Guardians, what appeals most is the sci-fi stuff. I think it's like very flashy, cool special effects. This doesn't really have much of that. And Brad mentions it in his review. It's so different. It's more. It hits home more than the other ones have. Right? We'll get into that later on, but I think that's the best way to look at the numbers comparing the two.
So I also wonder if demographics play into this a little. You know, Paul Rudd, who has been a popular actor, has never really been a starring a man. You know, not a big lead role kind of guy. He's usually a solid supporting actor. And he's a little older generationally, right? So what you had, I think, with Guardians of the Galaxy, is you had the I'm not going to. Yeah, I was about to say Chris Pratt, and then I was confused with Oliver Platt. So you have the Chris Pratt factor, right? Who's rolling off Parks and Rec, huge following, and you know, at least in appearance, is a younger actor. I guess he and maybe Chris Evans are around kind of the same age. So I wonder if that played into it also, if just older viewers maybe just didn't get out to the movie theater as much this weekend.
I think what hurt it was Minions. It was going up against that huge kids movies. Let's face it, as much as we as adults love these movies, kids go and see them too, which is a good thing because it's going to continue the brand for future generations. But Minions made in its second weekend like $47 million compared to Ant-Man $58 million. Then you had Trainwreck, which was 40-something million. So this was like a three-way split at the box office this past weekend. Stiff competition. I don't know what Guardians opened up against, but I know it was nothing like Minions because it came out late summer. It was an August movie, not a July movie.
Right, that's a good point.
And I'm going to hazard a speculation just based on the volume of traffic that I've seen on my commute, because I get 4 hours a day to observe traffic patterns on I-95. It looks like it was it's a heavy travel week, vacation week for summer vacationing families. So I also wonder if that played into it. So needless to say, I mean, I'm going to hazard a guess that box office take is not reflective of how we feel about this movie.
Well, worldwide, though, it's made 133, so it's tracking really well worldwide.
Right.
Yeah, sorry. Just to reverse back on what Brad was saying before, Guardians went up against Lucy, which was a disaster. Get On Up and Hercules. Dora and Planet of the Apes, but that wasn't its opening weekend, so I won't count that. So I would count more Lucy in that category than anything else, but it didn't go up against as good a competition as Minions.
That's for sure.
Lucy was amazing for the crazy Korean's sake. No, I just wanted to mention it did. If we're talking relevance in movies that are close to it, it did almost $40 million more than Honey, I Shrunk the Kids did on opening weekend.
That's funny.
So is that the shtick? Are we going to be comparing it to other movies about small people?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought that's what it was about, right? It's about Ant-Man and he shrinks his daughter and a bunch of wacky hijinks. Did I see the wrong movie?
So, Everett, since you're on the mic, we'll cue you up first. So I want to know how this movie breaks out in ranking of MCU movies and/or properties, video properties, for you. So the main question is does Ant-Man break into your top five? And if it does not, what are your top five? So, Ev, why don't you go ahead and start?
I don't think it breaks into my top five. I haven't really put much thought into it, but right now I'm still reeling off the hype of seeing the movie because I just saw it. I know you want to talk about it. I just saw it Wednesday, which is kind of yesterday. It's yesterday for you guys, but it was about a day and a half ago for me. I really, really enjoyed it, but I'm not sure if I feel like I enjoyed it as much as I might have 2 days after seeing Iron Man 1 or after seeing either of the Cat movies or either of the Avengers or the Guardians movie. So I think for me, my MCU top three is still Daredevil, Guardians, and Iron Man 1. So it doesn't break into my top three. I don't think it breaks into my top four because I like both the Cat movies and both the Avengers movies. So, but I did. But that's tough competition.
Yeah. Was that the Ben Affleck Daredevil or the Netflix Daredevil?
Oh, both. I freaking love both of them.
All right.
I mean, if Jennifer Garner played Elektra in season 2 of this Daredevil, that would definitely be my top.
Just to clarify, we're doing post Iron Man 1 MCU. We're not talking like the Sony Spider-Man movies or the X-Men Fox movies.
I'm talking MCU, like current universe.
Just making sure.
Yeah. Although, if you sound off with a pre-MCU Marvel property movie, your answer will not be disqualified.
Yeah. So I mean, I know some of you are big fans of the Hoff as Nick Fury.
Or that old 1986 Captain America movie.
Yeah.
Where he had the motorcycle in a wooden crate in the back of his van.
Right. Yeah, and I know Gascles has already mentioned Batman, so go for it. Why not?
Let's go ahead and go over to you, Brad Bell. Same questions. Does Ant-Man break into your top 5? And if not, what are your top 5 MCU movies?
It does. It's my number 5. Exactly. I thought about this. I ranked them 1 through 15. I'll spare y'all the entire list, but I would go 5 Ant-Man, 4 Avengers, 3 Daredevil Season 1, 2 Iron Man. It started the whole thing. It's arguably the best origin story in superhero films. And then Winter Soldier. I just thought what that movie said politically, the commentary of the time it provided, all while being a badass superhero movie. I think that's the best MCU film so far.
I can't believe it nudged Iron Man 3 off your top 5, Brad.
No, Iron Man 3 was number 10 on my list.
Wow.
Yeah, Iron Man 3 is number 10.
That's high for me.
Yeah, I know. I'm interested in hearing what's under Iron Man 3.
Well, here, okay, 6 is Age of Ultron, 7 Guardians, 8 Agent Carter, 9 Iron Man 2, 10 Iron Man 3, 11 Thor, 12 Captain America, the first one, 13 Incredible Hulk, 14 Thor 2, and 15 Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That would be my top 15 of all the MCU stuff.
Look at Steven's face.
I know you're giving Steven a freaking aneurysm.
I know I am. I'm sorry, Steven, but I just Danny had messaged me earlier in the week, and he said he thought this was the best origin story since Iron Man. And I gotta say, I agree with that. I think this may even be a better origin story than Iron Man. I just love what Downey brings to the Tony Stark role so much that it still elevates Iron Man.
I should mention editor Brad Bell is our DC Universe expert, so we won't hold his ranking of Marvel movies against him.
Absolutely.
Right, Mr.
Y'all
Danny?
should see where I rank Jonah Hex in the DC. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
All right, Mr. Danny, give us your answer.
I left the shows out, but I got my top 5 films. I would say number 5 is Guardians, 4 is Ant-Man, 3 is Avengers, 2 is Winter Soldier, and the first one is Iron Man. And which sound somewhat similar to yours. I mean, like he had said, Ant-Man, the origin story, it was different. It was refreshing take that I felt like this was a regular a Joe, basically a screw up really, who could have been anyone else, I guess. Just trying to make right with his daughter, so that's what I liked. And then with Iron Man, I don't know. I just like my heroes flawed, I guess. I really like my heroes flawed. So like Captain America's origin story, it's further down the list.
Man, the minute you said that Ant-Man was better than Guardians, I just stopped listening. I'm just kidding. I'm just hardy. I'm like Casey. I'm a big cosmic guy, so it doesn't compete.
All right, cosplay a player, Mr. Stephen Herron. Give us your answer.
Oh, I hadn't thought about it, and while you guys are talking, I'm listening, and other than the shock that Brad put on me just then, I think I've kind of put together a top 5. I would say.
What shocked you about my list? I'm just curious. Which?
A lot of it, because I think Iron Man 2 is worse than Iron Man 3. by
I
a
agree
lot.
with that.
I agree.
Where's my eject button?
Yeah. But yeah, and I also like Agents of Shield, so I don't know why that's so low. But I'll back off that. Ant-Man absolutely makes my top 5. I was very surprised by the movie. I didn't know if I was going to like it because I don't like Paul Rudd, but this movie made me like him better. And now I'll give him a chance. But my top 5. Thank you. My top 5, I would say, would be number 5, Daredevil. Number 4, Winter Soldier. 3 is Guardians. 2 would be Iron Man, and number 1 would be Ant-Man. Because
Wow.
coming out of not having known anything about Ant-Man, and now Ant-Man is such a realistic and down-to-earth character, it's really cool. And then all the backstory with Hank Pym, I just liked everything about how they did the movie. I don't think they did, in my mind, I don't think they did anything wrong in that movie, other than Anthony. That's my only problem with the movie.
Hey, I'm buying the hot toy of Anthony. So don't say
Ant-Man
anything.
is Ant-Man number 1 for me.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a big turnover. That's
Because I don't like Paul Rudd at all, and I honestly was not going to see this movie, and I support every Marvel film, and it wasn't something I was going to go see. I'd maybe see in the cheap theaters. But after the second trailer came out for the movie, I was sold that I needed to see it.
That's awesome, and those are the stories I love to hear. I mean, we're all big movie fans. We're all fans of cinema. We're all fans of film, entertainment. Those are the things I love to hear. Is when you see a performance and it causes you to do a complete 180 about how you felt about the film. So that's awesome to hear. So I will say Ant-Man does break into my top 5. That top 5 is a very competitive list, and I could juggle it a different way any day of the week. I will say movies that are not in my top 5 that I really feel bad about are the first Thor. I'm a huge Kenneth Branagh fan who directed that film. He's just an amazing director and an amazing actor. Cap 1 is not in my top 5, and I feel bad about that. And Iron Man 2 is also not in my top 5. I understand that may be a little divisive, but I'm a big Don Cheadle fan. I thought he was awesome, and I loved he got, in my mind, he got the most screen time in Iron Man 2. And Iron Man 3, I think, is just it's one of the toilet movies of the Marvel Universe. For me, that's just my opinion. In with Spider-Man 3 and X-Men 3, but that's just me. So my top 5, I'm going to go from 1 down through 5. Avengers, the first Avengers is number 1. Age of Ultron is 2. Cap 2, Winter Soldier is 3. Ant-Man breaks in at 4, moving The Incredible Hulk down the list, the Ed Norton film. And arguably, maybe I rank that Incredible Hulk in my top 5 just because I know so many people seem to be either maybe not against it, but just very lukewarm on it. And I thought
people forget about that movie, and that movie is fantastic. Like, I watched that recently, and it's so damn good with Tim Roth. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great character movie, and in my mind, they did an amazing job. For me being a Cold War kid who grew up in the 80s, they did an awesome job of intermixing things from the Bill Bixby Incredible Hulk, just little tiny touches, right? That called back to it without being cheesy about it, right? Just the theme and the you wouldn't like me when I'm angry, right? That was awesome. That's the way to make a movie. So my notes are screwed up again. Give me a split second, and I will be back on track, I think. Okay, so we've talked about box office. We've talked about our top 5.
Did I get my rankings or no? I forgot.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't think
There's
so.
there's freaking 6 of us in this podcast. This is the largest cast I've ever tried to work these things through. So
Seen episode 100 of Capes.
yeah, I imagine that was just a freaking free for all. Go ahead, John Reyes. Tell us what you
All
think.
right. Yeah, we'll get more into detail about the movie, but Winter Soldier. I'm gonna go from 1 to 5. Winter Soldier. I absolutely adore that movie. It's one of my favorites of movies of all time, just in general. It's such a just taking it away from the MCU and stripping it away of that. It's just a good political thriller. I mean, just looking back at it, how well done it is. It's just incredible. It really is. And then it gets a little. These next couple are interchangeable, but Ant-Man's definitely in my top 5. I really, really liked it. Again, we'll get into more detail, and I'll get into more reasons why later. But it's definitely in there. I don't know where to put it within the 2 to 4 range, but it could go anywhere with Guardians, Daredevil. It's in that area there, so any one of those could be my 2 through 4, and then the first Avengers.
I'm sorry, I was looking at a couple things. So Ant-Man was not in your top 5?
No, it definitely is.
It is.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Ant-Man breaks into everybody's top 5 except for Everett. Is that right?
That's right.
I'm the prude.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Very cool. So there's one more Marvel movie to release this year, and that is Fantastic Four, coming out in 2-3 weeks.
It's not a Marvel movie. Guess, please.
So seeing Ant-Man's numbers, knowing how we feel in general about the film before we get into the details of it, how does everybody feel that the release path of Age of Ultron and now Ant-Man sets up Fantastic Four for a first weekend release in August? Does this help it? Does it hurt it? Does the relatively high spirits reflected in fans' feelings of the two, I'll say, Marvel Studios movies play to Fantastic Four's advantage or disadvantage? I'll throw that out to anybody.
It's a superhero movie. It's at least gonna make $50 million in the current climate. Opening weekend, I think $50 million is kind of bottom for a superhero movie right now. Ant-Man was close to 60 there with the $57 million. I think it's got some marketable actors. I think Michael B. Jordan is more popular than maybe a lot of people realize, especially amongst younger viewers who watched him in Friday Night Lights and shows like that, and they enjoyed Chronicle. Kate Mara, big actress, and the beloved Miles Teller was Mr. Fantastic. How can you go wrong there right now? I'm just kidding. I'm a big Four fan, so this is not fair. I'm actually really excited for this movie. I like Josh Trank.
I'm hoping that when people see Fantastic Four and they're like, wow, this movie really sucked compared to Ant-Man, that they'll be like, yeah, it needs to go back to Marvel. That's my.
It's not gonna suck.
It's gonna be terrible. That's my Fantastic Four bashing for the night.
All right. Anybody else want to weigh in before we move on to the movie highlights?
I don't think. Well, when we went to see Ant-Man, Fantastic Four had a trailer at our theater, and my fiance sitting right beside me, and for the I think 3rd time, she has seen a Fantastic Four trailer, and it takes her until the very end to go, oh my, is that that's a Marvel movie? Is that Fantastic Four? She has no clue.
Yeah. And they gave you the rope-a-dope with this trailer. They completely, for the first 30 seconds of the trailer, I had no idea it was a Fantastic Four trailer, which I thought was good, but that's just me.
That I agree with you. I think it's good. For people like her, it's just a sci-fi movie.
Right.
Now, she's not a sci-fi fan, per se, so I don't know that it would draw her to say, hey, let's go see that movie. But I know that I feel like the people who liked Interstellar are going to want to flock to this movie because it feels like that, and I think that you'll have people like me and Brad that it doesn't matter how they're doing it different, we're going to go support a Marvel film and go see it when it comes out. That's my take. So, I mean, I think it'll do decent. I don't think it's going to do better than some of our big name ones.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be lukewarm at best. And I think it's really towing the sci-fi line than the Fantastic Four line. And I think that's good for its case because people are very sour on Fantastic Four. So
Yeah. Are
I don't think it's going to be very good. I think the movie as a sci-fi film it'll be good. I just don't think it's going to do Fantastic Four wise. The Fantastic Four is not dark, so we'll see.
I feel pretty confident I will wind up liking Fantastic Four more than
Yeah,
Prometheus.
I agree.
More than Prometheus.
Oh yeah, I agree there.
All right, so so in uh, uh, contrary to past spoiler casts that at least Jonathan Reyes and I have done, we're not going to run down the movie chronologically in this show. We're expecting that everybody who's watching this has seen it. We're definitely going to do spoilers, so if you haven't seen the show, we're trying to queue this up for people who have seen it the first weekend or come back and want to listen to this podcast after seeing it the second weekend. So what I want to talk about right now is casting. And we'll go ahead and intermix that with performances and on-screen chemistry. We've already heard a little bit from Steven about his, how he felt about the movie, kind of how he kind of traversed the arc of, seeing the trailers, seeing the build-up, and then going to see the movie, not being a fan of Paul Rudd. I want to know how you guys felt about the casting and the performances and the on-screen chemistry. So, Brad Bell, since you wrote the review, I'll let you go ahead and start this one off.
I just want to address one thing before I go casting. I'll say casting. I thought Paul Rudd was a great Scott Lang. He played the good everyman character very well. Like Steven said, he was relatable. He was an average Joe, if you'll say. But I went in this movie thinking about director, because for the longest time, Edgar Wright, who, if you don't know, he directed the Shaun of the Dead movies and Hot Fuzz and those movies with Simon Pegg. He developed this movie from the ground up. He worked on the shrinking effects and he worked on all the special effects. He took a Ant-Man reel to Comic-Con like back in 07 or 08. And he has a very unique sense of humor, one that didn't maybe sit the best with Marvel because they said it felt more, this is what I've heard, again, this is all he said, but hearsay, if you will, but what I've heard, it felt more like an Edgar Wright film than a Marvel film, and we've heard that with Patty Jenkins going back to Thor 2, and that's also one of the reasons that Gasicles reminded me before we went on there, Favreau didn't necessarily feel excited or any interest in doing Iron Man 3, and they brought Shane Black on. I think you can really tell, and this has already been addressed by Edgar Wright and by the current director, Peyton Reed, the Edgar Wright parts. The stuff with the train, the bedroom scene, the final fight scene, the fact that the final battle between Yellow Jacket and Ant-Man takes place on the train choo-choo set for little kids, that's all Edgar Wright. That was fresh, that was different, it may have been a little corny, but it really set it apart tonally from some of the other Marvel films, which kind of feel like Thor 1 and Thor 2 feel like cookie cutter films to me. And I'll have to say, I was so glad that they at least kept some of Edgar Wright's signature work on this film while at the same time streamlining it with the rest of the Marvel movies.
All right, Everett Harn, feelings on casting, performances, and on-screen chemistry.
Yeah, I second kind of what Brad said. All the funniest moments in that movie were due to Edgar Wright's input. I'm a big Scott Pilgrim vs. the World fan. It wasn't anywhere near as funny as that, but some moments were pretty damn good. I've always been a big fan of Paul Rudd ever since Knocked Up, and I enjoyed This is 40 and Role Models, so it wasn't hard. Like, I think they cast him perfectly, and I knew Paul Rudd was going to be great. So it wasn't like a big reveal for me. Evangeline Lilly, she was okay. She's good at playing kind of the cold,
Lost.
Yeah, she's good at playing kind of the cold personality and then she can get warmer as the movie goes. And Michael Douglas was fantastic. what's his name?
Corey
The
Stoll.
yeah, that played Darren Cross. He was pretty good. You know, he in everything I've seen him in, he plays kind of the douchebag, that the guy that you just want to punch him in the face as hard as you can, and that's what he was cast for. And I think he did a good job. So yeah, I thought everybody was well cast. I liked Pym. You know, I think it was all well done. The guy they cast for the what's his name? The guy that wanted the formula from Hydra. He was another one of those guys that you just want to punch.
Right. Danny B, your feelings on casting, performances, chemistry?
As far as the performances go, I loved just about all of them. I mean, I feel like I'm a fan of Paul Rudd. I feel like he, for the role of Scott Lang, I feel like he was going to run away with it immediately. I was actually the most impressed by Michael Douglas taking on Hank Pym. It's a little bit different than the Hank Pym that I'm used to, but I love his. Yeah, right. And it was a little, yeah. I mean, his was probably my favorite performance for sure. And then what's the other guy's name? The one that played the Yellow Jacket, Cross.
Corey Stoll.
There we go. I'm thinking his character name. Yeah. He wasn't bad, but I mean, Michael Douglas, I felt like stole the show. I would love for them to take that technology that they used in the beginning and turn around and make a prequel film.
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump in the rotation. So I think the thing that impressed me the most about this film and the cast is, you know, there's always a difficulty in pulling off an ensemble film, right? Like the fact that Avengers got made and that those actors weren't at each other's throats, and they are they appear to me to be as close as like the cast of like The Walking Dead, which is
That's why they know that money is there to be made.
Are we playing Geeks on Screen? Are we playing Geeks with Wives bingo? Because I'm sure I'll pop out an Angel reference at some point during the show too. And what's so amazing about the film to me is that you know, Michael Douglas, an incredibly accomplished actor, Paul Rudd, you know, theoretically being brought to a Marvel movie because of his comedy background, and to give it that flavor. What I loved about this movie is nobody filled the screen. Like, you know, you have those actors in those movies that, like, when that actor's on screen, it's almost like you can't see the rest of the cast, right? They just own every scene they're in. But every scene was incredibly balanced. And there are great scenes when there are only two of them on screen. You know, when it's Rudd and Lily, when it's Rudd and Douglas, when it's Douglas and we keep forgetting the actor's name who played Darren Cross. And all of those scenes are incredibly well balanced, and they work. You know, when it's Douglas, Lily, and Lang, that whole kind of training montage was just awesome and just tonally perfect. I do want to say from a performance aspect, I was most impressed by Evangeline Lilly. I like her. I've never felt that she's like a marquee actress, but I just felt like in this role and the whole range that she goes through, like you mentioned, Everett, where she's cold, she's aggressive, she's soft, she's regretful about her relationship with her father, and then, you know, we'll talk about the end scene or the end credit scene where, you know, you just see the fire light up in her. Like, I'm so excited to see her as the Wasp. I just of all the casting and all the people they brought on board for the movie, I was most impressed by her. And then the last piece I'll add, as far as performance and casting, you know, I'm a person who considers other elements of the film to kind of be members of the cast, like the music and things like that. I will say the fight choreography in this, you know, both with the on-screen actors and their physical performances and the CG. I mean, no other Marvel movie has been fight choreographed like this, with the whole like rapid shrinking and expanding of size. Just an amazing technical feat, in my opinion, by the digital effects crew and by the actors.
I think. I'm just going to jump in real quick.
Go ahead.
I feel like we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't mention Michael Pena as Luis,
Oh my
because
Oh yeah.
he was so damn funny as his sidekick, and I think he was just as good as Favreau in the Iron Man movies. I think he was fantastic.
I actually want to give a nod to all three of those guys because
Yeah.
'cause I went through an experience where when I saw them on screen, I was like, oh, that's cool. They're like the typical but then when they brought them into the caper, I was like, here we go. We have to bring along the three normals, right? This is going to become like a big like escort mission movie with him having to protect these three knuckleheads. But again, that on-screen chemistry and how the three of them, when they were on screen, were like perfectly balanced, and how they were like this foil when the three of them were on screen with Ant-Man. I just think was awesome. Yeah, props to T.I. He, I forget, there was a heist movie or something that he was in.
Takers.
Yeah, he's one of those weird. He's like one of those rappers, kind of like, for me, like Chris Bridges, Ludacris, and some other like R&B actors who really bring a lot for me when they show up on screen, because you don't expect that performance from them, and you don't expect them to bring that little bit of edge to the film. So Stephen Heron, how about you? Thoughts on casting and performances?
Casting-wise, I don't think they could have picked anybody better for any of the roles. I am a huge fan of Lost, and we all know that. And that was caked. It absolutely. If you know Lost, that was exactly how she was. She'd be cold to some people. She was friendly with others. But in the end, if there was a job that needed to be done, she could get the job done. And it was great.
Did you ding dong Steven for the Lost reference?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I already talked about Rudd. I think it was incredible. Even the daughter, like, I thought that who they got to play his daughter, it didn't seem like one of those child actors that you have, and it's not necessarily believable. But
she was cute as hell. Yeah.
Right, but she was funny, but not like overly funny. It seemed like a real kid. Like that's what a kid would say. If stepdad is a police officer and he says, "I'm gonna go get your dad," and she looks up and says, "I hope you don't catch him." That's awesome.
And let me tell you, having a 3-year-old daughter, that is exactly how they are. They are frank, earnest, uncontaminated, and they just say what is.
So yeah, I thought the movie was great.
And I think like Steven and Agasicles, who has a daughter who can speak to this more than I ever could, I think what sets this apart is if you look at all the best Marvel movies, let's take Captain America Winter Soldier, let's take Guardians, and let's take Ant-Man. You look at Cap, like John said, Cap 2, it's a political thriller. You look at Guardians, it's a space opera / comedy, very unique science fiction / science fantasy, almost like Star Wars, if you will. And then you look at Ant-Man, and it's this completely different. It's a father-daughter story. Like it's a family story. It's a redemption story about a screw-up who wants to right the wrongs of his past and just somehow, some way have a relationship with his daughter. And I think that was refreshing, and it set it apart from an origin story, say, like Thor, or from the first Captain America movie. Even though Steve Rogers is one of the greatest origins of all time, this pulled at your heartstrings. And I think there's something to be said about that.
Go ahead.
I disagree with you a little bit, Brad, just on Thor, because I thought one of the endearing things about Thor is at its heart that is a father-son story, and a brother story. I also want to mention at this point too, we talk a lot about the best Marvel movies and how I think a lot of us feel that the best Marvel movies they're not superhero movies in a lot of ways, right? We all of us talk about Cap 2 and how that is like a spy movie, and that's what makes that movie so great. This to me Definitely the daughter movie, and that's one of the things that I hooked into, as a father with two young girls. It's a lot of it is a heist movie, and a lot of it is what like there's like a little like Ocean's 11 kind of flavor to a lot of the stuff that happens on screen, and that's what made it feel very sharp and innovative. Might be too strong a word, but I definitely feel like they came at it from a different creative vector than we were thinking. Did I hit everybody? Did I hit everybody for casting and performances?
I didn't mention anything.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you've listened to any of the Geeks on Screen where Steven and I have been on, and we've kind of like anticipated this movie, we've both agreed 100% that forward was our main concern, and we were just wondering what was going to happen with that, because I've never been a forward person at all. But I think he nailed it. It made, whenever it got away from the serious moments and he kind of just butted in to make it funny, it worked 100%. And I don't think there's anybody else who could have done that. Because he's just charming. He just made it just made sense. And then Michael Douglas, I mean, I want to see that origin story too, like Danny said. That would be amazing. He's still got it. It's amazing. He was fantastic in the movie. Evangeline Lilly, she's never really done anything for me in terms of like being impressed. But yeah, I agree with how she's got like this cycle where she goes through in a movie where it's like cold to warm. Corey Stoll, I think, was underused. He is such a talented actor. Really, really talented, and I don't think he was used well. Brad said in his review, a generic villain, but one that made sense, and you understood what he was going through. It wasn't like this, oh, I'm going to destroy the world. It was, here's my suit, that type of thing. But overall, the casting was great. The performances, it was very well done. I can't see anybody else in those roles. And yeah, I back Everett. Michael Pena was fantastic. I mean, those were the funniest moments in the movie.
Like John brought up Corey Stoll and Yellow Jacket. It's funny he said that, and I was talking about kind of being a generic villain, but yeah, it made sense. However, George R.R. Martin came out today, for those of you that don't know, the writer of Game of Thrones, and Danny can comment on this. He said that these Marvel villains are so generic, and more often than not, the main villain in a Marvel movie just rivals their hero counterparts. So with Iron Man, you got Ironmonger. Here you have Ant-Man and you have the Yellow Jacket. And there's one more I'm blanking on. But
was it, I guess, to back up his argument, not saying I agree with it, but just thinking about it, was it Captain America and Red Skull?
That may have been one. I'll look at the article here. But he kind of had a bit of a point. I don't think, besides Loki, what villain in the MCU has been as close to compelling as either Bane in The Dark Knight Rises or the Joker in The Dark Knight. Like, I know it's kind of not fair to bring up that Ledger Joker performance because it stands on its own. So let's make the Bane comparison, I guess.
Well, it's
besides Loki.
Everett called it Tim Roth as the Abomination. I thought was awesome in The Incredible Hulk.
I think that was probably my favorite part in that Incredible Hulk was Tim Roth.
Tim Roth is one of my favorite characters. Absolutely, he's a great guy.
So let's talk about a little bit about pacing. I want to go to that before we come back, and we'll come back to best scenes and worst scenes. Danny B, how did you feel this movie was paced? Because I think that's always a thing that has to be very carefully orchestrated in these superhero movies.
I wouldn't really say it was slow. The entire time, I mean, when I go to these movies, it's like, all right, put on the suit. Like, I know it's not that simple, but that's kind of like my reaction at first. It's like, all right, let's see the Iron Man suit, let's see the Cap suit. But I mean, I felt like it was well paced. I loved the way the movie started. I mean, obviously you had to set up who exactly Hank Pym is without making the movie, about him, because this is Scott Lang's story. So I felt in the time that they did, I thought it was well paced.
Danny,
and then, come around. What's up?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you because you were on a roll, but you said it was one of the best origin stories And it's 2 origin stories, right? Because they did such a fantastic
Right,
job with Pym and
with
Lang.
both of them, exactly. And I thought honestly it was well paced. I mean, the first half is them building up all of these characters, Hope as well, and then you know, of course, the second and third act was just all Ant-Man. So I mean, I had no issue with the pace.
So so before I pass it off to anybody else, so I thought I thought they rode the line at a few points. It's a very one of the things I love about the film is it's very much it's a heavy character development story. Heavy character development story. I'd be interested to see the metrics of how much like action there was compared to kind of talk. I mean, when we talk about comic books, right, Brad Bell, we talk about talking head scenes, right? And
Yeah.
this movie is a lot of talking heads, and so the risk with that is if they didn't have the exact actor mix that they had, that could have gone the other way. And there were a couple points where I was like, I was comfortable, but I was thinking about other fans watching it. And it's like I was like, I don't know if this pacing is just spot on. It just felt like a skosh off. I think they wound up pulling it together by the end. Again, when it cut over and kind of became a heist movie. But I was a little on the edge with the pacing. John, what do you think? Because I consider you a scholar on this topic in film.
I wish. I think it was it hit a couple of bumps in the first half hour, I'd say, where it just got a little slow, and I was like, okay, what's the point? But in terms of the origin stories, agree 100%. Very well done. To balance, like pretty much 3 origin stories in one was great. I thought the best one was the Hank Pym one, where you kind of rallied around him, even though your main character was Ant-Man and Scott Lang, and that's your guy. But I really wanted to know more about Hank Pym and his relationship, and I loved the way they kind of just peppered it along the way. It kind of kept you in it. There was this nice mystery along the way, and it was like, okay, what happened to his wife? And I like how they showed exactly what happened, and you can see the toll it took on the relationship, the strain between him and Evangeline Lilly's character, where when she did finally break down, when he finally admitted to her what happened, it hurt you too as the viewer. You're like, wow, this really meant something to these people. So I think that's where there was a nice payoff right in the middle, and then you get your nice final third act where it's just action. So I think, like I said, little kind of bumpy roads where you're like, okay, what's your point? And then they did a great job of kind of catching on you up and really just filtering it all together.
All right.
Guys, do we really want more Hank Pym? He's like one of the most notoriously despicable heroes in the Marvel Universe. He's a wife beater, which I was so afraid that they were going to go there in this movie.
I actually thought that they did go there whenever, he at the very start when he punches that guy in the face for saying something about his wife.
Yeah.
I was like, was that a comment about him like hitting his wife or something? And then later you find out that she died like just before that, and that's why he did it. But I was for like half the movie, I thought that that's what that comment was a comment about him punching.
I just want to pick up on something John mentioned. We've mentioned how this is a father-daughter movie, and it definitely is. But we've focused a lot of that commentary on Lang and his daughter, but it's also the story of the Pyms, right? The Pym Van Dyne father-daughter is also a story arc of its own. So Everett, how did you feel about pacing?
I think it was perfect in terms of pacing. Like I think having studied a little bit of film, I think all movies need its ups and its downs. It's fast paced and it's slow paced, and in a good balance. So where people think that it starts to drag, I think that's like meant to be there. That way the action is much higher. Like that by the time you start to get sick of the montage of him doing Ant-Man and stuff, and then they're like, all right, now we're going to send you out on this mission. You're like, well, it's just going to be more of the same, him controlling ants and learning all this stuff. Then they throw in the Falcon, and you just you get like immediately hyped, and then they come back to like the character drama after he gets back, after Cross and everybody's there, and they slow it down. So I think they did a good job at getting it started and then slowing it down, getting it started, slowing it down. I didn't feel dragged the whole movie.
Cool. Anybody else got comments on pacing before we go to best scenes, worst scenes?
When it opened up, sorry, Steven. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. It's okay.
I'm being the Hank Pym of this podcast. I'm just being a terrible person. I'm not going to slap anybody, I promise. I was just going to comment on the opening because the movie just silently started in my theater. There was not the Marvel page flip. It was just boom. There is the Triskelion where the Shield has their headquarters, as you see in Winter Soldier. So I just thought it was an odd kind of cold open. But go ahead, Steven. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, for me, I think the best paced and the best Marvel movie we've ever had was the very first Iron Man. In 10 minutes, they told everything you needed to know about Tony Stark as a person and set up that entire movie. In 10 minutes, you felt like you knew him your whole life. I mean, you knew everything you needed to know. And with this movie, that's kind of what I wanted, because I have no clue who Scott Lang is, and I want him to tell me, show me this, do it just like that. That's what I was expecting, and they didn't, because they had to show you Hank Pym, and they had to do his 10 minutes, and then they had to do Scott Lang and do his 10 minutes, and then they had to do his family. And so they did that, but they broke it up into sections, and at times I felt like, oh man, it's getting a little slow here, and I didn't understand why, but it gets slow for a reason in all the different parts, and that slow piece here leads into a heavy impact part there that is just, if you didn't have that slow piece, then it wouldn't mean as much. I mean, it being so slow, talking about the wife being killed or dying or whatever, I'm like, that's sad, but why is it taking this long? Well, it had to, for that ending to be such an important part, so I thought they did a fantastic job overall.
Cool. So let's go ahead and go on to best scenes, worst scenes. I'm going to start. I'm going to take the advantage because I don't want anybody to steal my scene. Because Everett almost did it. I was afraid he was going to.
I already mentioned Falcon. I called it.
Oh, come on, man. Okay, so three of us. That was one of our favorite scenes. All right. I'll kick it off, and you guys can definitely join it. So, I'm a big fan of Anthony Mackie. I think the fact that they've got him in the films is awesome. There were lots of doubts about that actor taking on this role. I loved, and I don't know if you guys have watched the Avengers Assemble cartoon, where he's such a prominent figure. He's very much like reflective of like the Cyborg role in the Justice League, in some of the Justice League cartoons, and in the comics where that character out of nowhere is taking on these big central roles. What I loved about that scene was not just the fight, but the fact that Falcon, in comparison to Cap 2 and Age of Ultron, how he was just so immensely confident, right? That he just, I mean, I talked about characters not filling up the screen, but man, that dude filled up the screen when he rolled in. Like he was patrolling his hood, right? And nobody was gonna walk in there and like run stuff, right? And just immensely confident. The way his power level has been jacked up with the new suit. His capabilities and just his competence. Like in Winter Soldier, he's very much kind of stumbling and trying to figure things out. In Age of Ultron, yeah, go ahead, Danny.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but if you let me put Avenger on my resume, I'd feel like a badass too.
Yeah.
Right. And I just feel that whole scene was so again, incredible fight choreography. And more so than the choreography was just Anthony Mackie acting that scene out, and then the neat comedic twist at the end where he's like, I do not want Cap to ever hear about this. was just awesome. So Everett and Danny, how did you guys feel about that scene?
since you took that scene, that was definitely my number one scene. But you know what? There was two other ones that kind of stuck out.
Hold on, one thing. Nobody can call end credits. We're gonna do end credits separately.
All right. Well, there was two of them really that kind of stuck out to me, and it was the Hank Pym. It was the Ant-Man and Wasp flashback. One of the things I really noticed was they don't show her face. They don't show her face at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that they're easily opening up for something else.
Yeah, there's that one picture where even when she's in the photo, like a hat
Exactly.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was all for that scene. I'm definitely a fan of Wasp. So excited to see her soon. And then crap. I guess the other scene would be in the Microverse, or I think they called it the quantum something.
Quantum plane.
Yeah.
Quantum plane.
That was. Did you guys happen to catch the little Easter egg that was in there? Because I was reading about it, and apparently the director was like, "Oh yeah, you need to watch closely." It was something that even Ant-Man himself doesn't see in there. I did not catch it.
Was Wasp in there?
Apparently, there was some sort of a being hidden there, and it's been across the board. It's either been Wasp or someone said entity before, and I was like, oh whoa.
Because the whole time he was in there, I was expecting when he passed out that like she would show up and like push him or do something and get him back.
But that's just one more thing leading to possibly seeing the original Wasp return.
Yeah.
So, Everett, any other comments on the Falcon Ant-Man fight scene, or what was your best scene?
I got real excited when Anthony Mackie showed up on screen. I was just like, oh hell yeah, this is the fan service moment. You know, every movie's got to have someone fighting against someone, and I was glad. It kind of, they're kind of trying to pull a Hawkeye with Falcon. You know, now we kind of see him in this comedy movie, and I think more people are going to come out of the movie liking Falcon more because of how funny he was. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that. I'd say my number 2 favorite scene, just thinking off the top of my head, is the breaking and entering scene where Scott breaks into Hank's house for the first time, and he just using his genius to unlock the door and to break down the safe. Like, I love that stuff.
Made from the metal from the Titanic. Doesn't do good with ice.
Right, exactly.
That's sick guilt to DiCaprio, man.
Yeah. And
I love that.
my third favorite scene's got to be the Yellow Jacket Ant-Man fight at the end with the train and all that stuff. That it was just
and the Cure playing in the background.
Yeah, Cure. Yeah, the minute Cure started playing, my wife that was sitting next to me, who's not a fan of sci-fi or hero movies at all, just died laughing. She absolutely loved it, and it's funny because my freaking phone does that function all the time when I don't want it to, and it'll just start playing a random song, so I got a good kick out of that.
So, Stephen Heron, what was one of your best scenes, favorite scenes from the movie?
Oh, well, I would definitely say that the Thomas the Train, that scene was great, and that ranks up there. Just to have it go from a comedy, when it zooms out and it's all comedy, and you realize, oh, it's just a toy train, but it zooms in, it sounds like it's an old Western, these guys are running across trains, and that for me was really great. But I think my favorite scene ties in with my least favorite scene in the movie, and it's my favorite part of it is at the very end when they're falling through the sky in the briefcase. They're both small. They land in the pool, and my dog doesn't like me talking about it because he hasn't seen the movie. But Yellow Jacket's flying at him really small, and he grabs the ping pong paddle and hits him right into the bug zapper. I mean, for me, that was just perfect. That was beautiful. To have just in the corner of your eye, you just happen to see the bug zapper exactly 3 seconds before he grabs the ping pong paddle. And then, boom, it happens. For me, that's perfect. It was great. But right before that is my least favorite scene.
Don't keep it a mystery. What's your least favorite scene?
When he freaking Daniel Cross shoots Anthony out of the sky with a pistol.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
I
was the
understand that
dumbest part.
a bullet is like this big compared to a little bitty tiny ant, but you're gonna tell me you're gonna shoot from a moving, taking off helicopter, shoot a pistol, and happen to hit Antony of all the ants? Maybe one of the other ones that doesn't have a name,
Right.
but
It was the
Antony,
dumbest scene.
and then watch the wing slowly fall. Like my heart dropped. I don't even like ants.
I haven't cried that much since Quint got eaten in Jaws.
Since Old Yeller.
Since Quint got eaten in Jaws.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that was the dumbest scene in the whole movie, because it's like, how the hell does this guy's like the anti-stormtrooper. He hits the person that he wants to hit.
Well,
Well,
let me ask, because it sounds like you two are saying, I'm trying to see if you two are saying a little different things. So, Steven, it sounds like you're saying it wasn't, you're not thinking it was the worst theatrical scene in the movie. For you, it was your least favorite.
It was my least favorite thing to see happen on screen.
Okay.
Just because, for me, I know it's not realism type based movie because we have a man that shrinks to the size of an ant, but still, you can't shoot an ant, flying ant. You can't do it. So I didn't enjoy that just for the sake of that. It's just the least favorite part of the movie. Not that it was anything terrible,
Okay. And wherever you felt it was dumb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
you both felt it was dumb. Okay.
Yeah, we both thought it was dumb. Like, there's no way he would have hit that specific ant shooting out of a helicopter that has a gust blowing downward. Like Steven said, it's not super realistic. I mean, there's no talking raccoons in this movie, but I feel as far as I'm willing to believe, I don't believe he could have hit Anthony and Ant-Man out of all those ants when the helicopter's taking off. That was just dumb.
My only counter to it is I felt it was a good character building moment just to show that Scott doesn't think of the ants as simply props.
Yeah.
Right.
It's numbers.
They're not things on his utility belt, right? I mean, that he maybe doesn't feel that way about all of them, but he builds some genuine bonds to his partners. So, Brad Bell, best scene, worst scenes in the movie, any of those?
My favorite scene was the opening scene. I know I just kind of took a shit on Hank Pym as a character, but when it comes to the Marvel mythos, he's just as important as Tony Stark, as Reed Richards, as Bruce Banner. He's one of those four brilliant minds that kind of the whole universe is hinged on. He created Ultron, and to see the young Michael Douglas, the young Hank Pym with some very good CGI have interaction with not only Howard Stark, but with Peggy Carter at the Triskelion in the very earliest days of S.H.I.E.L.D. and kind of see that rivalry between the Pyms and the Starks, that technological rivalry, and to establish Hank Pym as a very important character as far as at least S.H.I.E.L.D. is concerned from the ground up, it drew me in right away. And I think as more time passes, you're going to find out as the MCU goes on that Hank Pym was very integral in a lot of important things and events moving forward. And that made me happy as a Marvel fanboy.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'll run through mine quickly. There was three small ones and then I guess one more general one. But I agree with Brad 100%. The opening scene. What sold me, though, wasn't all the comics, because this was my first Ant-Man anything. So it was just cool to see Peggy Carter for myself with the Agent Carter show recently. Having seen that show, I have this bond with her as a character. So seeing her again just made me really excited. That kind of like brought me on board right away. I'm sure that did that for a couple of other people, but I know for me that made me super excited.
Haley Atwell always does that to me, John. So.
But yeah, no, I agree with Brad though about the Hank Pym stuff. Going through the movie, I would say about a quarter of the way in, That was another one of my things when they name dropped the Iron Man suit. I was saying my suit's like almost better than the Stark's suit or whatever. That kind of gives you a good idea of Hank Pym's importance to the universe. So I agree with that 100%. That was my second one. The third one is like another small one, but it was toward the beginning where he's in Baskin and Robbins and says, "Okay, can someone take care of this idiot?" I just love that because when I worked in Berkeley for 2 years, I would deal with people like that all the time. And man, I wish I could have just said that. Please take care of this idiot. And then the more general one, but I agree with something you said earlier, Gaskins, was the choreography of the fight scenes and the ants in general was stunning, just fantastic, almost breathtaking. So yeah, those are mine.
All right, Danny B, you had one more scene you wanted to mention?
Yeah. Actually, this scene gives away a lot. It was the last time Michael Pena is going basically into story mode, and he's talking about Anthony Falcon looking for Ant-Man, and just the going awesome. Back and forth. That was pretty hilarious, but like my absolute like oh shit moment was when that reporter referenced Spider-Man. I don't know if you guys caught it. He says something like, or when he's telling
we got someone swinging, someone crawling up walls. Yeah,
someone swinging, someone crawling up walls, and someone jumping, and then Anthony Mackie's character is like, "Nah, the one who shrinks." Like that was awesome, and then just that entire scene, because then you flash back and you see Michael Pena's character chilling in a museum. I don't know if you caught that art museum. It looks pretty familiar to you for you Daredevil fans. But
I didn't put two and two together there. Wow.
But that's what I'm saying. That entire scene, they were like, "Hold on, let me give these fanboys what they want real quick." And they just dropped scene after scene, and I think that was one of my favorites. I completely forgot about that one for a second, and even Michael Pena's role. But yeah, man.
Well, Danny B, you wanted to jump to the end credits earlier, so I'll go ahead and hand it off to you. Why don't you talk us through the end credits and let us know how jazzed or how much of a downer you thought the end credit scenes were.
Oh man. These end credit scenes, I'm definitely excited for both of them. I was excited to see both of them. I'm really ready for to see how Wasp, interacts on the big screen with the rest of these Avengers. Same thing with Ant-Man. I mean, I know there's no plans for her to be on Civil War. I guess we're gonna have to wait until
Infinity War.
Yeah, until Infinity War, but whatever, man. As long as she's going to be in the universe, I'm totally fine with that. Holy crap, that Civil War scene, man. And then he says something like, what is it? Anthony Mackie he says something like, "Should we call Tony?" or something like that. And Stark, or not Stark, Rogers basically like, no. And then that entire scene, it was amazing. I'm ready to see Ant-Man interact with these guys. We have in the beginning of the film, or throughout the entire film, you see Pym. He basically does not care for the Avengers one bit. And then from what I remember in the comics, he was kind of jealous of them. I mean, that was the whole reason why he came out with the Giant Man serum, or was so he could feel, on the same level as the rest of these Avengers. But then you have this version of Hank Pym, and he's just like, nah, screw Stark, screw everyone else, and you see that kind of rub off on damn it, Lang.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see how he does interact with the rest of these Avengers, and it pretty much seems like everyone hates Stark at this point. So I'm kind of interested to see, them two interact.
Yeah. Let's just all jump in here because we have such little time left.
Yeah.
I was actually a little puzzled by that last end credits scene because so far we haven't seen Bucky and Tony interact at all, and Tony hasn't mentioned Bucky. like, why is it such a crime, that they found Bucky? Why would Tony even care? Like,
Because of the destruction that he was responsible for in Cat Winter Soldier. Because what I was reading as a result of what happened over in Europe with Age of Ultron and what happened with the Hell Carriers in Cat 2, a piece of legislation called the Segovia, or wherever the place Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are from, the Segovia Accords have been signed. We don't know what that legislation is, but it's going to spark civil war.
Yeah. I want to say Cap's specific line in that is even if we contacted Tony, we're not sure that the Accords would allow him to act or do anything. So he mentions those Accords, and some government legislation has gone down that apparently restricts at least some of the superheroes' freedom or latitude to do something.
Were these Accords mentioned at all anywhere else in any other film besides that end credit scene? Because that
but
this is the first mention.
The actual name of the Accords isn't, but you kind of see little hints throughout all the movies. I mean, and even the Daredevil show of like this superhero registration act, like in the first Avengers, which I just watched recently. Like at the very end of the scene where they're on TV, they're like, these superheroes need to be held accountable. So you kind of see little hints of that. Little things like that being said. You see in a poster in, I can't remember which episode of Daredevil, you see the same thing.
So they're pulling kind of a Man of Steel where Bucky is responsible for all this damage that happened in whatever city that was, and Tony would want to go after him? Is that what they're trying to
If he knew he was alive, he would. I feel like Bucky's going to be made the scapegoat, and Steve knows that, and he doesn't want that to happen to his friend.
But doesn't everyone know Bucky's alive? Because, I mean, Cap probably told him, that he's looking for him.
I don't know. I just know that only him and Anthony Mackie were the ones, and maybe Black Widow were the ones that went after him at the end of Cap 2. We never saw it on screen, them talking about Bucky.
Because I feel like for the first time ever, and I've, just the I've seen like every MCU movie at least 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was still lost at the end of this credit scene. Like I knew all the characters, I heard everything they said, and I was like, I don't get, what, I know it has to do with Civil War, but I don't get, why.
The important thing is this is a scene from the middle of Civil War. It's not just a post-credit scene. The Russo brothers have come out and said, and Peyton Reed, that we'll see that same scene in the middle of Civil War.
Okay, so it's not a post-credit scene. It's a preview scene of Civil War.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. I don't agree with what Agascally said on the last Geeks on Screen. I didn't think it was the best post-credit scene, but it was interesting. I was the only one in my theater that stayed for it, so.
Yeah. So that's because you had the Anything After app. John Reyes, feelings on the end scenes, and we're gonna bolter through these last round.
No, I'll be quick. I'm excited to see. I'm with Danny. I'm excited to see the Wasp. I want to see more of her. Nah, that's all I have to say about it.
Brad Bell, feelings on the end credit scenes?
I loved it. I love Civil War. I love that Bucky and all these threads from these different movies, all the destruction that's been going on, is going to tie in organically, unlike Man of Steel, where it's forced to make a Batman versus Superman movie. It's just organic and natural here. And Danny has an interesting theory about that. Throw that out there real quick, Danny, because that's good stuff.
I was kind of looking at these different theories, and one of the ones that I came across, one of the most popular ones, was that Stark and Rogers, excuse me, they're going after Winter Soldier for 2 completely different reasons. One of the theories was that Winter Soldier is actually responsible for Stark's parents' death, and if you guys can help me clear this out real quick, because I remember at one point I thought it was said that he had died in a car crash, and then at some point someone said otherwise. I don't remember if I heard it in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or
it doesn't matter what they've said about his parents because they could easily spin it into Bucky causing that.
So that's why that does make sense. I could see why why them two are going after him for two different reasons, especially with
Yeah.
Stark, behind the Registration Act, and they're like, you know what, we can't call him. Cords could be leading this, so we're on our own. And it also makes sense to see Ant-Man on the other side of that.
Yeah. Now that would make sense because that kind of goes back to where I was saying, like, why does Tony care about Bucky? And I kind of hope that's the reason because that would make perfect sense. So, yeah.
And also the reason I loved the end credit scene was number one, I thought it was an awesome twist to have Steve Rogers and Sam there in civvies, like not in their like superhero costumes. Again, it kind of harkens back to that whole Cap 2 like spy movie theme that there's a lot of footwork that they do. There's a lot of investigation that they do, like undercover and covertly, and not like running around in their star-spangled costumes, right? So I thought that was awesome, and I also thought that the effect of them being in civvies just harkened a lot more to the fact that Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson are friends. I mean, they're comrades in arms and they're superheroes, but those guys have a bond that's just very human and like is beyond the fact that they're Captain America and the Falcon. And I just thought it was a well acted scene between the two. I mean, Chris Evans owns that role as Steve Rogers. Like he is Steve Rogers, like in my mind. And I felt like through this film, through the fight scene and through that end scene, like Anthony Mackie is really embodying the persona of Sam Wilson as the Falcon. And that's why I thought that scene was awesome, because it wasn't about all like the shield throwing and the Falcon suit. It was these two dudes on the ground doing footwork in a very kind of I don't know what's another word for it, in a very kind of, forget what the other word is for a detective, but in a very kind of like street detective kind of manner. So anything else anybody wants to throw out about the movie? I think we are about to go ahead and wrap up. Brad Bell, did I give you a chance to comment on the end scenes?
Yeah, I did. And I loved the movie. I gave it a 9 out of 10 on my rating. You can check out my review on geekswithwives.com and find me on Twitter at @TheRealBradBell, REEL Brad Bell. And on Geeks with Wives and Capes in like 20 minutes.
All right, guys, thanks so much for joining in. That was a tour de force in getting into every nook and cranny and detail about the Ant-Man film. I think we all walked away from it thinking that, whether it was our favorite film or whether it was a 9.0 or however we would score it, I think we were all engendered by the film. We were all impressed by the film. A couple of us were surprised by the film and how well it was put together and how well paced it was. So thanks a lot for joining in. Brett Bell, thanks a lot for running the boards, man. You're the best.
You're welcome. Before we wrap up, Everett, where can we find your work?
Yeah, you can find me at Everett Gets It on Twitter, and you can find stuff hopefully coming up on geekswithwives.com. And also, Steven dropped out a little while ago, but you can find him at Invictus Cosplay on Twitter.
What about you, John?
I'm working on some stuff for Geeks with Wives when I have time to write, whatever that is. But I'm on Twitter. I talk on there a lot, at Wordy Nerdy. That's with Wordy, it's with an E, not an O. So, yeah. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on. What about you, Danny?
You can find me, Danny Benavidez, on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, and Geeks with Wives. I'll be working on a Hawkeye and a Spider-Woman review this week.
And we'll see you on Capes here in just a minute.
See you guys.
All right, Agasicles, what about you, our good tech editor?
Hey, check me out on Google Plus at plus Agasicles Stamus.
And thanks for joining us tonight. And I think I can sign us off for Agasicles. We are out.